Welcome to another Flick and the Boz Man show. And Dave, any idea at all what that song may have been?
We love LA.
Boy, the first 30 seconds of that song in the form I found were really boring, but I'm glad it had a good video. And
all I can think of it when I hear that song is the scene from Airplane,
yes,
from Naked Gun,
and Naked Gun and
with the ball game.
And the video, yes, I thought of the baseball, yes,
yes.
yes.
Look, everybody, it's Enrico Palazzo.
that has nothing to do with who the Boz may pick in the Super Bowl, and certainly nothing to do with who I will pick, because I won't pick. But we'll see what he has to say about it after he talks about the AFC and NFC title games. And you had the AFC game incorrect. What happened there?
The Chiefs blew an insurmountable lead.
It was mountable. What happened? It was
mountable. It started with not getting the points at the end of the first half.
Yeah, that did hurt. If you're out of timeouts, now that's a different issue, why you're out of timeouts. But if you are out of timeouts, you got to kick there. At least I do.
And, one of the things I read on that is that Mahomes has a tendency to improvise where he shouldn't. And that was one of those situations. You need to know the situation. You need to throw it away. If you're gonna run a play there, you've got 2 seconds to make a play, and you can't throw it short of the end zone. It has to be. He's got to know that. Like he is too good to screw that up. And yet, but this article I was reading says that he falls down in that situation a lot, where not that he's in that specific situation, but he tends to improvise where he shouldn't.
Or underhanded to the running back, which seems to be called now and then, but he does things that aren't necessary.
That costs them. And
he adds a degree of difficulty that he just doesn't need to add.
And then, in the second half, the Chiefs focused on passing.
Right. And
when the Bengals were in an 8-man defensive back situation, and they passed for a net 4 yards more than they rushed for in the second half.
They made a lot of the same mistakes. It wasn't quite the size lead, but they made a lot of the same mistakes that Atlanta made in the Super Bowl against New England.
Yeah. It's just mismanagement of the clock, mismanagement of the time and, possessions, and, failing to recognize what the defense was giving them. They averaged almost 5 yards a carry in the second half, and yet they only rushed the ball like 12 times.
Right.
And when they dropped back to pass, there was nothing there. And he kept trying to force things. There was a couple of interceptions.
Now the interceptions were tipped or just great plays by the defense, but
when you're throwing into an 8-man defensive back, that's what's going to happen.
Yes.
He could have sat back there all day and surveyed the field and at least made them call. Although the referees weren't calling anything. Either way, I'm not saying the referees were biased. They just weren't. They just didn't call.
They just weren't calling much. It wasn't a parade of flags. No,
which I like.
I like that too. Let them play a little bit.
Yeah,
I wasn't yelling and I wasn't yelling and screaming in general, but I wasn't. Oh my gosh, they're not calling anything. They called a couple things that they had to call. I thought in both games, but there just wasn't that flag after flag after. Let's have a conference and 4 different flags. And
the Dallas game stands out in the playoffs as one with just way too many flags. And obviously, with a few less flags might have changed the outcome of that game. And we'll be talking about the Cowboys here instead of the Rams, but potentially. But the Bengals made the plays. They did play much better from when they were 21-3 down. But at 21-3, statistically on 538.com, they said the Chiefs had a 95% chance to win the game.
Yeah,
and they lost.
And kick a field goal, and yes, your fans go, "Oh man, you had to kick a field goal there. You kind of mismanaged the last few seconds, but at least you came away with points. But they didn't.
They
They
did not.
didn't. No. You figure if they kick a field goal there, they need to score. There were a number of times where the Chiefs just needed to score three.
Yeah.
And just get a three here. And no.
Yeah. That would have been the difference in the game.
Yeah.
Or at least you make the Bengals got 2 field goals in the second half, uh, and you would have made them say we can't settle for a field goal here.
Yeah. I was going back to Denny Green's clock management,
Yeah, exactly.
and they're kicking field goals. So I'm like, it's gonna get late early here, and they can't go for field goals too much longer. And they stayed patient, and I handed to them, and up until about 8-9 minutes left, I didn't really think they had a serious shot, and they proved me wrong.
The Bengals played well on offense. They did change their offense enough to get some things done after the first 3 scores by Kansas City. And they got some more passing. They got Chase involved more. Bengals did a nice job on offense, but the Chiefs, that was their game to win or lose. And at 21-3, you can't lose that game.
No, and
And I don't
I
know.
don't. I didn't leave that game going, "Wow, Cincinnati's better," and that turned out the right way. Cincinnati was stayed around, gave Kansas City an opportunity to blow it, and Kansas City blew it.
Yeah, I go back to the run pass differential in the second half for Kansas City, and not recognizing that the Bengals were almost always in a 3-8 situation there. Just run it, make them stop the run, and they didn't. The Chiefs continued to try to throw the ball into that 8-man coverage,
Yeah,
and I don't know. It's funny. You and I were talking for different reasons about Eric Bieniemy and the coaching situation, and how Andy Reid, by the announcers, Andy Reid always gets the credit whenever the Chiefs' offense is mentioned in a good light. So, is that his fault? It's got to be, right?
some it is Reed's fault. He's the buck stops here, and he has the ability to, okay, I don't like that play. I want to run this play.
If he gets
But
credit for them having the great offense, he's got to take the blame for them screwing up a game that they had no business losing.
yeah, and they won a Super Bowl, and they made another Super Bowl, and from a season that didn't look as good this year, they got it back to the AFC Championship, and Reed deserves some credit for that. But if I'm a Kansas City fan, are you disappointed that they only have one Super Bowl win in these last 3 years? They've arguably been the best team all 3 years.
Well, here's the thing, and here's why I would be nervous if I'm a Chiefs fan. If you go back and look at Drew Brees' career, Aaron Rodgers' career, Peyton Manning's career with the Colts, name other than Brady, name a great quarterback from the last 20 years who has more than one ring. Russell
Yeah.
Wilson. How many? Most of those guys had multiple chances
Chances.
to get back, and they only ended up with one ring.
Right.
And what happens is a little bit of Pat Riley's old winner's curse from the 80s Lakers, of the guys on that team are going to start to want to get paid, and you're going to have a hard time keeping the team together. That's what happened with Seattle. That's what happened with Green Bay. That's what happened with New Orleans. You go back over the time there, and you see all these teams that look like they were built to last, and none of them got back there.
Yeah, and maybe Hill doesn't go anywhere, or Kelsey sticks around, but you start to lose a lineman or two. You start to lose
Yep.
the third receiver, fourth receiver.
Yep.
And I don't see how they're going to improve over the next year or two. If what they have is good enough to win, maybe it'll still be good enough to win, but I don't see how KC 23 is better than KC 21, 22,
Yeah.
but maybe they'll surprise me somehow.
Well, statistically, Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks we've seen. You and I have seen in our football fandom. So is that enough? I don't know. You know, the Bills are clearly going to be there. The Titans are going to be there, particularly if they can figure out how to improve their quarterback play. I'm not suggesting they need to move on from Tannehill necessarily, but they're a very good team that needs a better
All
quarterback
right.
play.
We'll shift it over before we talk Super Bowl, and we'll shift it over to the NFC Championship game, and I'll let you give your thoughts.
Well, that was another game that, strangely enough, the 49ers, the road team, should have won. They were up by 10 uh, and had the game in hand, and their hunky quarterback spit the bit.
A shot at your competition
What?
and beat the boss. I don't know.
I mean,
Since she tied you, I did give her a Super Bowl pick, but there's no
okay.
prizes at hand here. But yeah,
And it seems like that's going to be Jimmy G's last play with the 49ers. I don't know if the 49ers are making a mistake. I personally, I don't understand why they would.
all he does is win.
Yeah. I mean, the Niners have long acted like a team that can just roll out whoever they want and win. And they've been able to sort of recoup and so forth. But they let Harbaugh go a few years ago. They said, oh, we can get another coach. Um, most other teams in the league have a hard time finding a good coach. And listen, Shanahan's sort of revitalized himself and revitalized the team this year. Did a nice job bringing that team back from the dead midseason. So maybe they did find a good coach, but good coaches and good quarterbacks do not just grow on trees. And I'm not convinced that the guy they drafted this year is ever
Trey
going to be any
Lance.
good. Yeah. I don't know.
I'll compare this to the AFC game. Did you leave that game thinking the Rams were the better team?
Marginally, yeah.
Marginally. I think you described it well. I kind of left that going, they played 10 times neutral site or where they're playing now. Maybe it would be 5-5, 6-4 Rams, something like that.
Which is interesting. Obviously, we talked about it before. Before the game, that's the first time the Rams have won in 3 years against the 49ers.
Yeah.
Well, since 2008,
Well,
right?
six. Yeah.
18 rather. I mean,
they had a six game losing streak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And the Rams probably should have won the Week 18 game that they were ahead. What was it, by 17 or something like that? But be that as it may, here they are. I think the Rams are a very good team. They played really well, particularly in the fourth quarter, and they came back and got it done. So that's your matchup. It's Rams and Bengals. Two teams that have not had a great history of getting to the Super Bowl, but here they are. They're both 4 seeds, which is interesting, at least to me. When I look at are we ready? Did you want to say anything more about the NFC Championship game? I don't
know.
No,
I'm fine.
When I look at the Rams season, I mentioned this before. I think they only really have 2 good wins in the regular season. Obviously, each playoff win is a good win. You can't. I'm not trying to say that. The regular season, they beat Tampa Bay and they beat Arizona. All 5 of their losses were against playoff teams, which is interesting. So they didn't lose to anybody they shouldn't have, right?
They were down to the Jets, but
yeah. Interestingly, they traded for Von Miller midseason and then promptly lost 3 games in a row. And then they had a 5-game winning streak before the season-ending collapse against the Niners. So I think the Rams are in good shape. Partly the excuse, I think, for Von Miller is when they traded for him, I think they knew that he had like a high ankle sprain or something like that. So he was not 100% when they traded for him, and they figured he would get better over time, and he has. I don't know why it took a while for Odell to sort of blend in with the team, but he's been phenomenal for them in a move that I didn't think made sense at the time. I think you mentioned that you had gone back and listened to my picks as to who had a chance to make the playoffs or make the Super Bowl.
Make the Super Bowl, yes.
And I think I said at that time that I thought Odell should have gone to Green Bay, where there was clearly one great receiver and they needed help. And I still think that was a better fit for him.
That was probably a better fit. Just didn't happen.
And he ended up in LA. LA has a myriad of good receivers, but somehow where it didn't stand out in Cleveland, where it should have, I thought, and it didn't work for him the first couple of weeks in LA. Over the last 5 or so weeks of the regular season and each game of the playoffs, he's been very, very good for them and a great second option for them on the receiving end.
And he's been targeted and he makes the catches and he's kept his mouth shut. And I gotta bring all those things up because it's part of what Odell is. And it's working right now. It's fragile. Could he rip his shirt off at some point next year and walk off the field? It's possible, but he's a great second option, and Cooper Kupp is having a just great regular season and impressive postseason, and gets himself open. And I think he dropped one I thought he could have caught last week, but he does not drop many.
And he had a key fumble the week before, right? He's usually very, 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 very good. One of the best in the league, actually. So, and then for Cincy, they had good wins against Pittsburgh twice, the Raiders and the Chiefs, and they lost to the Bears and the Jets, the Browns twice, including once by 25, and the Chargers by 19. And then their other loss was by 3 to the 49ers. So what is Cincy? I mean, they're sort of a Jekyll and Hyde team. When they're going good, they're as good as anybody. You and I I think I texted you that interestingly, from a points scored and points allowed on the season, Cincy and the Rams both scored exactly the same number of points, 460. And the Rams allowed 4 fewer points over 17 games in the regular season. So from that perspective, very evenly matched. The Rams' strength is probably their pass defense. They were third in the NFL with 50 sacks. And that would seem to play really well to the Bengals' weakness, having allowed 51 sacks in the regular season.
Now, a lot of those aren't the line's fault. A lot are Burrow's fault, just holding it too long, looking to make that play. But I think that's a matchup you'd be worried about if you're a Cincinnati fan. And I kind of thought special teams might be something I'm worried about if I'm a Ram fan.
Yeah, special teams, the Bengals have an edge, but special teams are on the field 10% of the time, maybe.
Yeah.
So in defense, the Rams were tied for third for most interceptions, tied for second not tied. They were second in fewest touchdown passes allowed. So they allowed the 5th best passer rating to their opposing quarterbacks. So very good pass defense, not a great run defense, but that's not necessarily the Bengals' strength. And so, on paper, the Rams defense should be able to smother the Bengals offense, I would think. From a number side for the Bengals, again, very even. The yards allowed, the points allowed, the points scored. The X factor with the Bengals, I think, is simply from a talent standpoint. Can Burrow get the ball out to all his playmakers, Chase and Boyd, and I'm drawing a blank on the other guy. Dang it! It was there a second ago.
It'll come back.
It'll come back.
I was thinking of Mixon and the running back.
Running back. Yep. I'll get it in a second.
Maybe
Higgins.
it'll come.
Higgins.
Maybe it'll come up in trivia.
T. Higgins.
T. Higgins.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, listen, they've got a bunch of great players. I haven't seen if Azuma the tight end is going to play, but the other guy, stepped in. Their backup guy stepped in and had a couple of receptions. And P. Ryan had the backup running back does well when Mixon's not getting it done. So they've got great skill position players. The offensive line continues to be their bugaboo. It didn't haunt them last week. The Bengals were able to keep the Chiefs out of their offensive backfield, I should say. But that said, the Chiefs have been kind of up and down on defense, as we talked about before the games.
I thought McVay had a terrible first go around in coaching a Super Bowl. Will his experience help him this time around compared to Taylor?
I have to think it will help him. Taylor, honestly, I don't know how he's got his team has outperformed. I've picked against the Bengals every week, and I think I'm going to pick against him again this week. But he still got his team here, and they've done a great job. And so the question is, can they design enough offense to countermand the Rams defense and get enough defense to stop Stafford and the aforementioned Cooper Kupp and Odell and even the running backs Michael and Avery, I think.
Yeah, they don't get a ton of carries. They split what they do get. They do split. So I'd be surprised if either of them has a huge day, but they do enough.
Akers,
and so
Akers.
Before we, it became Akers, not Cam.
Yeah, Cam Akers. Yeah,
Cam Akers. Yeah. Before we get to the three questions I'm going to ask you about the game, I will say you are listening the Flick and the Bozman Show. You can give your opinion on Twitter at FlickBoz, or you can email us at flickboz@gmail.com, or if you're listening to this on the YouTube site, you can put some comments there. But your first of three questions is, who's the MVP of this game?
Who is the MVP of this game?
That's what I asked you.
The obvious answer is Stafford, and I've mentioned a few times on the show, I think he's an easy guy to root for, coming over from the perpetual black hole that is the Detroit Lions. And on a personal side, I think I mentioned his wife had battled cancer, and so they've got, I think, an easy quotient to root for. Quarterbacks usually, by statistically, are like 3/4 of the time have been the Super Bowl MVP.
Hope you didn't look at that too hard this week. We may have some related questions.
I may have looked at it a little bit.
All right.
And I will say, if it's not Stafford and it's not, and it is a Rams victory, I think I might go, you sort of go off the beaten path a little bit. Beckham and Kupp would come to mind. Maybe it's a defensive player like Jalen Ramsey.
Okay. Jalen Ramsey. And I'm going to ask for, and you've kind of hinted at the winner, but give me, this will be two questions in one, a winner and a score.
I'm going to take the Rams in a relatively high scoring game. I'm going to say 34-27.
Whoa, that would be a very, very high scoring game. I will tell you, your sort of competition, Hillary has looked hard for the hunky quarterback, and she's picked the Bengals 21-20. So it must be a tight race in
The
hunkiness. I
hunky
don't
factor. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, but officially, your score again. I'm writing this down so I can get it on the
I
record.
think I
And
said
we're not
34,
recording this multiple times.
34,
Well,
27, I think was my.
this is our second attempt at recording it, but that's not because we're recording every possible score. All right, 34, 27.
Yeah, that's what I said this time. I mean,
That's what you said this time. Yes, I'll mark this 34-27 version. All right, and the best commercial will be by what company?
oh God, what do I know about that? Not much. I will say one of those Bitcoin type things.
One of those
I
Bitcoin
think I
type
saw
things.
something about some ads from,
A Matt Damon and Ben Affleck
yeah,
collaboration or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
Goodman and Bill
Well,
Todman or something.
there you have it. The Bosman in his last pick of the year, at least football related, and last pick of the season, 34-27 Rams. And are you ready for
Trivia time.
I went
Trivia
as slow as I
time.
could. He got there. Trivia time. I had my doubts, but he had it all along. Trivia time. And the first three questions are indeed about past Super Bowl MVPs.
Oh boy. All
So
right.
you may have studied the right stuff.
I
And
may have.
for question one, I simply want the last wide receiver to win a Super Bowl MVP.
Oh, I did look at that. And I remember seeing Santonio Holmes was on that list.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman won just a couple years ago. That's your answer.
Julian Edelman. Okay. For question, and if you disagree or even agree with any of the Bosman's trivia answers, you can, at those sites I gave you before, get your trivia answers in. That's on Twitter at FlickBoz, email by flickboz@gmail.com, or on the YouTube site where you found this episode 57. We're one off, isn't it? Super Bowl 56, and we're on episode 57.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, that's a bad miss by us. But you can get your trivia answers in
I think
there.
it's a bad miss by the NFL. That's what I.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they should know our schedule.
Exactly. Come on.
The last defensive player to be Super Bowl MVP was.
Oh boy. I looked at this one too. It's the I think it was the guy for the Eagles.
Guy for
The
the
guy
Eagles.
for the Eagles. Jackson.
Jackson from the Eagles.
That's probably not right, but I'm pretty sure it's the guy from the Eagles.
All right, Action Jackson. We got him from the Eagles. And then I'm just going to need, because I was on a roll here for question three, the last running back to win Super Bowl MVP.
That one I actually did remember because I was surprised at how long it had been. It was, I believe, 25 years ago when Terrell Davis, was your MVP for the Denver Broncos.
Battling some migraines and whatnot. Terrell Davis, Super Bowl MVP. Now, I'm going to keep the theme of MVP, but I'm going to move to seasonal MVPs
Oh boy.
in the NFL. And since question three was about a running back, for question four, who was the last running back to be the MVP of the season? I like when the Bosman goes silent. I look for technical errors, but I know he's thinking. I'm listening to see A, he's thinking, B, he's cheating. No, I know he's way too honest to cheat.
I'm going to say I know Sean Alexander was an MVP. Chris Johnson was an MVP. Was there anybody more recent than that? I don't think so. I think it has been a while. Question is, which one came first and which one came second, if it's one of those two. I'm going to say Sean Alexander.
Flick in the Bosman first iteration
Yes,
favorite,
yes.
Sean Alexander.
That may actually wake me up to that was a little too long ago, but oh well.
Well, that's all right. And believe it or not, a place kicker won Super Bowl season MVP in the NFL for the season. Who was the MVP? That was a place kicker, at least the last one to do so.
Jan Stenerud.
Jan Stenerud. Getting that down.
The Norwegian Nightmare.
I'm glad you didn't say a Zendejas. That would have been harder for me to.
He was not Norwegian, nor was he a nightmare. But that's all right.
Well, Stenerud's not easy for me to spell, but I got it down there. All right, and I'm sure you spent all of last week watching the Pro Bowl.
The what?
Here's our football expert. Watching the Pro Bowl was last week. Pro Bowl.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if they shared MVP or had two MVPs, so that's how accurate I am with this question. But I believe there was a defensive and an offensive MVP. I'm going to ask you to name both, but I am going to tell you these two teams that they played with during the season played against each other in the final week of the regular season.
They played against each other, and it's not the same player.
It is not.
So he did not play against himself.
We do not think so.
I'm going to say TJ Watt.
What?
And who did they play? They played.
You guessed them. I don't.
They played the Ravens, right? So maybe. So maybe the MVP was Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson,
the offensive MVP.
Well, I am figuring as much. So, if you're out there listening and my questions made no sense, that doesn't mean you can't answer them anyway. But I wanted to know the last wide receiver to be Super Bowl MVP, the last defensive player to be Super Bowl MVP, the last running back to be Super Bowl MVP, the last running back to win MVP for a season, the last place kicker to win MVP for a season.
Ooh, can I change my guess on that?
Yeah.
Mark Mosley.
What? Mark Mosley?
Yes.
That's a lot easier to spell.
I remember now. Mark Mosley.
Mosley.
The last straight ahead kicker.
For the Commodores?
For the for the Commodores.
With Lionel Richie?
The Washington Commodores. That's got to be better than the WTF, right?
Anyway, don't.
Sorry, a little. I had to juke you there.
Hey, you're allowed to make edits. That's why I repeat them. Your time for editing is just about up.
Okay.
And your Pro Bowl shared MVPs or offensive/defensive MVPs. What impresses me is that I put the defensive guy in the wrong place, just like I did with the original answers. But I know what I mean. You went with Watt and Lamar Jackson.
Oh. Now, do you want your trivia questions?
I get trivia questions?
I have two questions for you.
All right.
There have been 55 Super Bowls.
True.
How many has the NFC won?
It's probably not 27 and a half. I will go with 33.
33, okay. And
why I went with 33, I have no idea, but I went with 33.
The Cowboys, interestingly enough, have had 7 Super Bowl MVPs. How many of them have been quarterbacks?
I figure Emmett had to win a couple. Did they have an MVP and a loss?
Yep.
How many have been quarterbacks? Maybe Roger once and Troy once. And there's got to be something interesting about this question. I am just going to say 2.
I will go ahead and tell you that is correct. Roger once and Troy once.
Wow.
Well done. And interesting, they were only in 6 Super Bowls, so they actually had co-MVPs, and they were both defensive players. And
Okay, yeah, that's what I
Emmett was
seem to.
one, and I forget them all now, but it was. I was looking at him and going, man, that's a weird list.
That would be a weird list. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, so there you go. You're a little bit of trivia back at you, and I will go ahead and tell you too. The NFC has won 28 of the 55
All
Super
right.
Bowls.
All right. So it's been pretty evenly distributed.
And there was that. You remember that, and probably why you said what you said. Like from when the
The
Redskins
half.
won their first Super Bowl, and like with Theismann through with the Giants last, or the Cowboys back to back. I think the NFC won all of those in a row. Right, there were no AFC
Yeah.
wins.
Yeah. That's why I went a little high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the Patriots,
I
I
mean,
guess,
I
even
know.
that out.
Yeah, Patriots have helped even that out for the AFC. Well, we thank you very much for listening to this show and throughout the entire NFL season. I'm guessing we'll be back with some NCAA basketball talk, but we may take a week or two off before then. But thanks again for listening and enjoy the big game. And any guesses what I'm closing out with song wise?
Eye of the Tiger. Got to go one game for each, one song for each. Ah, that was close.
Pretty close. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.